welcome.
What just happened?
Somebody should talk to me.
I guess we're not playing.
We're headed to Europe with a full 6-week tour ahead of us. It's our first tour overseas, and as we're finding out, it definitely shows. To start with the first of some short-sighted decisions, we decided to bring our own gear, meaning our stage rack, or the brain. But unfortunately, airlines don't seem to be very understanding about bringing a 200-pound stage rack. So first things first, we got to break down all the equipment. And I stupidly volunteered for the painful process of getting each bag to have enough gear to weigh no more than 50 pounds. As it turns out, it's cheaper to bring 3 50-pound bags than one 70-pound bag for some reason. So in the end, we had 12 full-size carry-ons plus 2 guitars. So basically, I fill up a bag, weigh it, and either take out or add some pieces to get it as close to 50 pounds and rinse and repeat infinitely. And in 3 Uber XLs later, we get to the airport, and with an obnoxious amount of baggage fees, we are checked in and good to go, except for the next challenge.
Several inches of snow across.
This is where we could have some impact.
Somehow in Raleigh, North Carolina, which rarely ever gets snow, got 2 major snowstorms in the last 3 months. So on the ride over there, we were crossing our fingers, and flights were already getting canceled, and flurries were literally falling. But I think we managed to squeeze out literally one of the last flights out of the airport. And with a layover in Boston, we were then headed across the ocean, and a breezy 6-hour flight, and us and our 500 bags made it to the United Kingdom. Another terribly interesting thing that we had to learn about was that the UK has pretty specific rules about bringing expensive things if you're planning to work, which we are. You have to fill out what's called a carnet, or a carne asada, as we call it. But it's basically a detailed list of all the work-related tools so you don't get taxed. So we filled and filed out everything we're supposed to on the stateside, got it rush shipped so we were ready to go, but our friends back in the US airport didn't do their part. But luckily, the British lady in migration did her best to help us, which leads us to... Holy crap, this thing is huge. The rental company originally had us on the smaller bus, but they had a free upgrade to a 16-passenger bus. Now, let me be clear, there's like 8 of us total. So we each get 2 bunks. Literally, we call it the junk bunk, but each person has a bunk they can sleep in, and another one can just store all their crap. And there's also a lounge, and we get all our stuff loaded in without a trailer because for some reason we thought we wouldn't need one. And then we had to pick up the little bit of equipment that we needed. We brought most of our gear and really just needed to rent drums and a stage rack case. And in hindsight, it might have been better just to rent most of it. But on the flip side, it was super handy to have our normal equipment with us. After hanging with a few naked British folks, we all passed out for the night. The next day, we 8 hours of driving, and through the easiest border control possible, literally, they ask you to bring a bag and just 4 people out, and they're like, yep, looks fine, let's go. And then we took the most epic ferry. Like, literally, this thing was a freaking spaceship. They even had Mexican beer and...
Video game room?
And 3 seasick hours later, we entered. Our first show is tonight, but we have a lot to do. We arrive early afternoon for load-in, and we need to reassemble all of the elements from our stage brain back home that is currently in all these bags that we packed, and put it into the new stage rack. And you're gonna find that UK and the US just do a million things different. So many things. For some reason, the screws on our 19-inch rack here are different. Why? And apart from that, I also need to reassemble a brand new keyboard rig that I got shipped to the first venue. So Sketty and I do our best to plug everything into the brain and in-ears, all the microphones, all the devices and routing that go to all the different things that we use. We're running okay on schedule, but we have no time to lose, and we're ready to test. Everything looks good, except serious problems are about to happen. So I also set up my keyboard stand, and I had to do some surgery, and I had to drill through the metal a bit to set some braces. Okay, no biggie deal. As I'm drilling, the battery on our US drill dies, so I put the battery on the charger, I adapt the charger to the UK plug, and I plug it in, and it catches on fire. Oh my god. So my mind's thinking, the first thing that I've plugged into a UK power outlet has caught on fire, and I'm quite concerned to plug our very expensive stage rack into the same power. But we're really running out of time to test, and when you really need to, because there's so many different things that could be plugged in wrong in the back of this. The headliner's almost done, and we're gonna have a very quick sound check to fix anything if something does go wrong, and boy, does something go wrong. So we put the UK adapter on the plug and plug it in, and then, well, nothing. The last band finished his sound check, and this is bad, I can't even turn on the brain at all. That's basically the hub for every instrument in the band except for drums. Thankfully, one of the guys from the last band walks over and asks if we have a voltage step down, and I'm like, what? Okay, well, here's an electricity lesson that we learned the hard way. Over in the US of A, our plugs look like this, while the UK's plugs look like this, and the EU's look like this. And here's the thing, although they all have pens, they are not the same thing. You can't just change the plug to match. So the UK and EU power run at 220 volts. So you can actually pretty freely interchange. They just have a different combination of how the physical plug looks. However, the United States runs on 110 volts, meaning that if you just change the combination and plug it in, it might very well fry your device. Unless. So a lot of the equipment is specifically designed to handle. If you look at a power adapter, you'll actually see that it can actually handle between 110 to 220, and it's actually written on it, meaning that it will basically work with the US and the UK voltage, and all you need to do is adapt that plug. However, our 3 power conditioners are not rated for 220, which we found out at showtime, and I am scrambling. We ran and got some voltage step-down converters, which I had never heard of before that moment, and plugged them in, and nothing. Clock is ticking. 5 minutes till showtime. Crowd is starting to grow. Our first show of our first national tour, and I can't even turn on our gear. 1 minute left. I ditch one of the power conditioners and patch everything into just 2 of them. I flip the switch, and holy shit. Power. We have in-ears, we have everything. And with the quickest line check ever, I start the set and scurry off stage. Oof, time to get in show mode. The intro starts, and
What just happened?
45 seconds into the intro, the power trips, and we're not making this show. I'm talking complete stage blackout, everything's mute, we call it. The venue announces the first band will not be able to perform due to technical difficulties. I could live with that, it happens. But somehow having to walk back on stage in full performance clothes and shamefully break down our gear that we just spent 30 minutes putting back up without playing a note was not something I really enjoyed at all. And all things considered, it could have been way worse. But we did not go to bed feeling like rock stars that night. The next day, we had very little time to solve the problem that we had, and it was a Sunday, which means that a lot of things weren't open, and we're in a foreign country, obviously, so we don't really know how things work. So we were just focused on building a ghetto solution that would get us at least through the next 2 shows, meaning we bought 4 UK power strips and just set them up in 2 sets of 2. We got to the venue and our first experiment was to just use the UK power strips and have 1 US power strip in line. Well, that didn't work. We were in the back corner of the venue near the bar, and it was early afternoon, so no one was really at the bar. So it was a good thing, because as soon as we plugged our stuff in, we tripped the breaker and all the lights in the bar just turned off. We discreetly moved our work to a different room, and we ditched the last US power supply and did a quick walk about Dublin to get the last UK power strip that we needed. We went through and hooked everything up just through the UK power, and it was quite ugly, but it was working. It finally worked. The real test would be sound check. After all the other bands finished, we got our sound check, and freaking finally, the audio seemed to be running correctly as expected. But we had other problems. Now, our dynamic visuals, which work over wireless HDMI, weren't working, and our wireless geysers weren't working, and our lead singer lost her phone, and yep, this is just keep it going on. For the geysers, we decided to just give up doing things wirelessly and just ran a long ass DMX cable across the stage to them, and that seemed to work. And for the visuals, an hour of debugging right before doors, I finally got them working. And at this point, I'm just kind of waiting for the next thing to break. And we got all dressed up and hit the show, and I don't really remember it, and I didn't have much energy for eye contact, but it went pretty well. And then we had load off, our first real load off. However, our stage rack is a mess because it's really not been prioritized to have cleanliness. The wiring is everywhere, and basically at the end of our set, I have to break down both computers, then cave dive on a dark stage to trying to unplug 3 specific plugs in this sea of cables. I have to stuff our super long snake back in and manage to close the door without it spilling out. Definitely was a don't cuss out the people that are around you kind of load off. But hallelujah, we are fucking done for the night. We took a very deserved fresh pint of ice cold Guinness. But this is literally show 2 of a 6-week tour. So let's see what happens next.